Hi, this is Lisa and welcome to my channel. Today we are going to talk about how to make background images for your model. And these are just clipped onto a simple backboard piece. And I am using the base that we made in the arena layout. Let's get started. First you'll need a backboard, and you're going to be making one of these out of a piece of plywood or other type of wood. And we'll talk about size shortly. And you will also need 3 shelf holders. And these are just the simple ones you buy in the hardware store. And you'll buy them in scale, whatever scale you're using, and I will just note what these are above. And we also use chip clips, simple little clips to hold on the image if you're not gluing it on. Once you've cut your board to size, just take these and glue them on so that they all are horizontal to the floor, and then this will stand up by itself. First, you'll need to find images, and you can find them online. Some images are free, and one place you can look is Adobe Stock, and I believe these are paid images, but I believe you have a trial if you're logged in the US, and you can get 10 images for free as a trial. So that's just one place to look, and this is the Adobe Stock. You can Google all sorts of things. It is amazing what you'll find, and the ones I am using actually are from Adobe Stock. Now here are some of the photos that I actually did get from the Adobe, and of course you can always take your own. Just make sure you have a high quality print to start with, and you're getting this sort of ratio of size. You want it to be horizontal so that it will fit the model fine. So here are just some of the ones that I picked. Once you have your photo, you're going to have to determine what size you want to print this in. And what you'll need to do is find out what your local printer can print in. Now mine is actually 28 inches wide by 20 tall, approximately, because I'm printing in metric here. So find out what standards that you're using locally. And you want, the 29 inches is a good width. I wouldn't want it any narrower, because you want to be able to get your horse in there and any other stuff. So if you're doing long layouts like driving, this will just work. You may want it wider. So for this next part, I've selected a much more simple photo so that we can talk this through. So how we're going to figure out is, how do we make this so that this fence is in scale with your models, it lines up nicely with what you want, and that you can send it to a printer, and when it comes out, it is actually going to work for you. So I have this program right now. This is paint.net. It's a free program, and I'll put the link again below. And this is what I use for all my artwork and stuff like this. So for our photo, the first thing we need to determine is something that will be in scale. And the thing I'm looking at here is, I want this fence to be the standard 4 foot. So if it's up against a horse, it should look like it's a 4-foot fence. So what I did is entered the 4 feet in this spreadsheet, and this is the same spreadsheet I've put up a few times for the barn and for how to measure this horse, and I will link it again below. So I entered 4 feet, and in 1/9 scale, that's 135 millimeters or 5 1/3 inch. So we need those values. So I'm sorry if you don't like math, but let's try this out. Let's say we want the total height, because of the print, is going to be 20 inches tall. That's our standard because that's how we're printing it. And we want this fence to look like 4 feet, and we just did the math, and that said it has to be 5 1/3 inches. So if I do 5 1/3 inches, and I divide by that total 20, that gives me the percentage. So just over 20%, 26%, which means just over a quarter of this height needs to be this fence. And that's important for the next step. So that's all we need to know, is this has to be 25% or 26% of the entire height. So the next thing I want to do is go into the crop mode. I'm going to crop this, or put a little square around it. So if I click on the square, and where it says fixed ratio, I want to do 28 inches wide, and I want to do 20 inches tall. And that gives me, so any square I draw here gives me the right ratio that we can then send to the printer. For this next step, you could use a ruler, but just to show you, here is 4 feet. And if I copy that, and this is on another layer, so it's not affecting, oops, let's go back to any size. if I go back and I copy this and paste it, I'm going to determine, paste it again, where this should be. I'm going to give a little bit at the bottom there as well. So I have a little room at the top and a little room at the bottom. So I moved the last one up to the top, took the extra, cut that off, and put it down. Of course, you can do this manually as well. So that is the whole height. 1, 2, 3, and 4. That gives a quarter. So that is the height I'm going to need. So with that information, I can then take this fixed ratio I have of 28 to 20, and then using that, I want the whole height, and that will give me the width. And in this case, that's the full width because this picture just happens to be the same proportions as what I need to print. And let's have another look at one that isn't this way. Before I do, I just want to mention that is the proportions to print to get this to 4 feet. The problem is I do not want this down here. So my only option, because of the way the picture is laid out, is print this whole picture, and then with a knife, I cut this off. Because if you don't, you end up, this is going to look a lot different than your base generally, and it is nicer to have right here line up. So print the whole thing, and then cut this bottom off, and it'll look so much nicer. So let's take a look at another picture. Let's say you want to do something like this. We'd have to figure out how high this is, and I found a picture online, and you can see this guy standing here. So let's say this fence should be around 7 feet. Would make sense. Let's assume he's six something. So that's going to be 7 feet. So I do the same thing. I still want it to be 20 inches, so I take 7 divided by 20, and that gives me 1/3 of the entire image needs to be this height right here. So if we look at this, 1/3 is basically the same height, but I don't want all that. I just want this much. I want to cut it right about here. So what do? You can see it's very tempting just to do something like this because that's actually all I really want to show. But if I do that and print it out, this is going to be way too big for your picture. So you're going to have to get that entire height in there. Then what you're going to have to do when you cut it, what you have to do when you get it is you're going to have to cut it off at some point through here. So pick this portion that you want in the height, and that's going to be the width you get. So you're going to lose all the edges. That's the area I want, and then you can cut that here. Or you can move that down and add something else at the top if you want. However, the height here is enough with some of this cut off to make a good picture. So if I crop that, let me just image crop to selection, that would be what actually gets printed. And then you'll have to cut a little bit of this off at the bottom or just work that into the dirt, into the same color of dirt that you're going to use. But you can't just cut it where you want it. You need to get these proportions so that everything looks good when you're using it. Now here is another one that has a lot more leeway. I went again for the 4-foot fence, so therefore it is 1/4 of the whole thing. So when I'm going to cut it, I want a little bit of this grass, and I'm going to take off a little bit of that height. So you're looking at something like this. And you can move around and find the right spot of the image, keeping that perspective, and you can take it there, you could take it there, as long as you're taking that height. So let's say I want this one here, say a little bit of that grass, make sure I get the right height in there, and if I go image crop to selection, that would be the picture I print out, and just remove that line, and there you go. That would be the actual printout, and you have a lot more leeway with a picture like that. And now this fence is going to be approximately 4 foot high. So here are some of the pictures I've taken with the images I have printed out. What you have to do is send your pictures to your printer, whoever that would be, and then clip them onto the board. Slice off any lower areas you'll need, and you're good to go. And you can interchange picture to picture just by using some potato chip clips to clip them onto the sides. And there we go. Please like and subscribe. And if you have any comments, please let me know. I can answer any questions you may have on creating these. And check out these other videos upcoming. Thanks for joining me.